kind of walking you through some of the new features or maybe some of the newer features that haven't been released yet. This one happens to have been released a couple months ago, but some of you are probably familiar with it, some of you aren't. We'll sort of do a demo walkthrough. We'll talk a little bit about some tips and tricks. Again, as Josh mentioned, if you have questions, feel free to type them in via the chat, or you can raise your hand. Happy to interrupt the demo at any time to answer questions or to just have general conversations about things and feedback. So let's go ahead and get started. Basically, our app branding and configuration lets you brand the mLevel app at 3 different levels. The first level is at the tenant level, and I'm just going to walk you through a couple of slides. This one has one slide, and then we'll jump back and forth between the app as I can sort of demo this live for you. Basically, what we have at the tenant level is we have a logo area, so you'll be able to upload your image. We also have a tenant brand color, which we're referring to as T1 in this graphic. We have a tenant brand background image, so on the slide here, if you can see my mouse, this is sort of the big X in the back here, this gray image that's representing that. You can kind of see, as we walk through these slides, I've sort of mapped some of these things so you can very easily see and visualize where these certain brand icons tie to, or brand colors and images. So the T1 here is the pink image behind here. This is our background image, which is layered above the background. And then we also have our menu icon color, so you can see these menu icons here, and it also affects the text color here. Some of you may be asking what a tenant is. So the way that we have our client structured for you is basically you can, if you have business units, you can actually break out your mLevel client into tenants. So you might have a business unit that's focused on sales. You might have one that's focused on HR. This allows us to sort of break those out into different areas so you can have different logos or different branding for those different areas, or what we call tenant internally. If there's any questions about that, go ahead and raise your hand or throw a chat in and we can answer those as we move along. So what you'll see here is just sort of a general visual showing you how the app is constructed with some of the branding options that we have here. So the T1 color here is the pink color, so that will be in the very background. If you don't have a tenant brand image selected, that's the color that will show through. If you actually select an image for your tenant, you won't actually see that brand color. I don't think it shows up anywhere actually, because you'll have the image behind it or in front of it. The last color for tenant branding is the menu icon color, as I mentioned. It basically auto-populates in the menu icon here and also the mission count below. So let's go ahead and we'll dive into the tenant here. I've got a mission created here for us to sort of walk through. And if we go in here, we can actually access our tenant branding configurations through this advanced configuration buttons on the mission detail screen. We see our tabs here. This is the mission branding tab is the last tab. We go ahead and click on that. That'll take us to our configuration here. So what I've gone ahead and done for this meeting is I actually have some logos predefined and some colors that I've taken here. So at the tenant level, these are the configurations that I'm going to plug in here. So right now we don't need a background color because I've actually got an image for this, but let's go ahead and I'll just show you what we have here is we actually have a live image you can see. So this is a live preview here of your tenant branding, and these are all the areas that get affected. So you can actually click on these little thumbnail icons and expand and get a larger image. Now if we actually expand my screen a little bit, you can see it's going to slide the CSS over. So I'm on a slightly smaller screen, so we're getting some cropping, but you can kind of see as we sort of go through and we change these colors and configurations, you see live previews. So here we can see that some of the stuff changed here. But in terms of the, actually, this is mission stuff, so let me back up. I'm actually in the wrong section already. So let me go up here. I'm going to continue without saving. And actually, we're talking about the tenant stuff. So let me go. There's a little icon up here in your mission area here that allows you to access the customized tenant stuff. And this is actually where we want to be. I was getting a little bit ahead of myself. So currently, we have the mLevel logo is our default. So if I go ahead and I click here, I can actually select do a search for, I'm going to do a Star Wars theme, so let me see if I've got a Star Wars logo in here. So let's use this logo right here. So basically that allows me to go and select any logo that I've pre-configured on my computer. Now it's going to upload and it's going to give me a preview. So you can see I've got a live preview of how that's going to look within the app. Now I'm going to select the background image, but before I select the background image, I'll change this color just so you can kind of see the preview. See, we selected a red there. Now it populates with the red. I'm going to go ahead and change this to a dark blue gray color. I think that's our default. So if I go ahead and I actually populate a logo, so I'm going to search for my Star Wars logo again. Let's do this. I've got a background color already set, or a background image. So once that populates, you can see it gives you a live preview, and you no longer see this background color. So if I change this to orange, you're not going to see that anymore. If I wanted to get rid of this logo, the graphic, I can actually delete it, and now you'll see that orange color populate in there. So let's go ahead and put this guy back in there. See, everything's pretty quick and snappy, and this is our title and mission count color. So if I want to go ahead and make that this yellow color, you can see we have a live preview here. So in a nutshell, that's all the Tenant branding. So that's one part of it. So I'm going to go ahead and publish that. If we back out into our missions, actually going to, excuse me, let me go out to, what I'm going to do here is get into our UAT environment. I'm going to play this so you can actually see it. So if you have any questions, again, go ahead and raise your hand. We'll unmute you, or you can type questions into the chat box as we go along. So, all right, let me just figure out which tenant I'm in. I believe I'm in. So this is actually what happens when you have multiple tenants. You actually select the tenant. I'm selecting. This is our UAT environment. This is our branding demo. So here you can see, actually, as we go in, I've already populated this stuff here. So Star Wars logos in there now. We've got our background and our menu, and our mission count is actually updated as well. So everything's working properly. So this is what you see at a tenant level. So now we'll go ahead and talk a bit about mission level branding, unless there's any questions.
You want to fire up the first poll? Right
Yeah, sure. Let's go ahead and fire up the first poll. So we have an interactive poll here for you. He's firing it?
Yep.
Yes, great. So how important is branding to your organization? Is it very important, somewhat important, or not very important? And we'll close that out in a little bit.
About 15 more seconds, Jeff, and we'll close the poll down, and we'll show you the results.
Great. All right, Jake already closed it down.
Okay. Go ahead and share.
I think we're seeing a trend here anyway. I think we're seeing that it's very important to people. 88% agree. 13% say it's somewhat important to them, and nobody says it's not very important. So I assume if everybody's here at this webinar, it's probably pretty important to you. All right, so the next level of branding that you can do is at the mission level, and that's sort of where I jumped in a little bit prematurely. But I have two slides around that just to kind of show you how that maps. So per mission, you have the ability to change some of the colors and some of the images. The first mission color appears basically on the mission overview screen, so you'll see that has a 90% opacity. I believe if you don't select a mission color, it might use your tenant color as a default out of the box. So just be aware of that. What happens is you see it has a little bit of a transparency here. So when you actually go to use your mission image, that transparency will show through. So you'll be able to actually put a mission image back here, and then we'll have an overlay color that appears over that mission image. So it'll have a subtle, it'll make it all the text a little bit more readable. So there's design purpose around that. The second mission color happens on your activity selection. So it's the orange color here, M2. And what that'll do is that'll populate this back navigation area. So your activity selection area with whatever color you choose. We also have a highlight overlay that you can toggle on and off. That sort of appears underneath this world of Coca-Cola we happen to have here as our test case. And then we also have a few more areas that branding gets affected. The M4 is all of the primary buttons within the app. So you'll see it'll be more than this. It'll actually be some of these other screens as well. So you see like the activity start screen uses the primary button. All of the end of game screens actually use the primary button. So these are affected in a lot more areas than just the tenant stuff. So it's a little bit more tricky, but hopefully this makes sense how we're sort of visualizing it here. The M3 color is the arrow and mission text color. So the default is white out of box, but you have the ability to change that. That'll actually change this little arrow up here in your navigation. It'll change the title and some of the other text around here in this navigation area. As I mentioned, the mission image. So the mission image will appear behind multiple areas. So it'll actually appear. The mission image itself will appear in the mission overview in this little box right here. Then it will also appear in the background with this overlay color. We'll show you some examples of that. And then lastly, we have the mentor image. So you can actually swap out the owl now. One caveat to that is that the owl has animations, and if you end up swapping the owl out with your own image, it's going to be very static. So it'll just appear. It won't actually animate or move or do anything. If you're interested in having something that animates, talk to us. It might be able to do something in the future with that. So we've not heard anything around that just yet, but at least you can change out the owl if you don't like the owl. So that's what we have permission. So we'll go ahead and we'll jump back into the app, and we'll show you sort of in that space again. So in order to access the mission branding, you go to the mission details screen. We'll click this Advanced Configurations button, and then we go to the Mission Branding tab again. So this is where we were before. Now I can actually change my background color. I can change the navigation area color, as we mentioned. We can change that color, so now you don't see the text, which probably is not a good use case. We can make it black if we want. We can actually toggle this on and off. So this is the little toggle highlight that we talked about. So we're going to toggle that off. And also the primary buttons that I mentioned. So right now they're orange. Change those to green, and you can see them update in the live preview here. So as we click these thumbnails, we can actually watch them magically update. And then we also have the mentor image here. So I've already updated this guy. If I get rid of him, let's see, so let's go ahead and cancel this. Trash this guy. So it'll default to the owl if you trash it. So that's what it comes as out-of-box default. So the other thing we can show is showing just different mascots. So here's a few different ideas that we had that were kind of fun, so you can kind of get a preview for how well this works. You can change things out pretty easily. So that happened to be one that we played around with. I think that we had another one. Where was it? We obviously have our Obi-Wan Kenobi image here. So what you can see here is just a live preview. So if you actually size your image, this will actually show up true to whatever image size it is based on the scaling in our app. So you might have to play around with your image size a little bit just to get it, just the way you want it. We'll talk through some tips and tricks later, and you can always ping us here at mLevel. We can certainly help you with things if you get stuck. So let's go ahead and go back to my little reference sheet here. We'll plug some of these numbers in. So right now I've got the mission background color. You can actually type in hex colors, and it will apply, as you can see. So now I've got this activity screen and navigation background color. We're also going to use black on that one. Paste that in. We're actually looking at using a slightly different tool here as well to select your colors. So in the future, we might allow you to have RGB inputs or a color wheel that you can select from. Again, this is our version 1 out of the box here, so we'll be making some improvements to these. And you can see as I do this, everything gets updated here. Let's Go to our primary buttons. Any questions so far, Jay?
Yeah, we do have one question.
Great.
How do you get translucent tiles? The question queued up right now, and maybe this is appropriate to move into our next poll as well.
Sure.
Whenever you're ready.
Sure. Can we unmute the person who had the question about the transparent tiles? Maybe we can get a little bit more context around that, just so I'm understanding what the question is.
Yeah, it's Bob Butler. Good morning.
Hey, Bob.
Yeah, on the example you
Thanks for
showed,
joining,
thanks, about 5 minutes ago, you were showing various, I guess they were activities. I'm not sure if they were missions or activities, but you could see through the tile and see the background. I thought that was pretty cool. I wasn't aware you could do that.
Star Wars.
It was a Star Wars
so
example.
Exactly. Right here, let me see. Once we get to the mission overview here, if we actually had a mission image in here, so let me go ahead. Sorry about that. Let's go to, let me go in here. Let me go to missions. I believe if we actually add a mission image in here, let's see, so let's go here. We add, let's just add this guy here. What'll happen is, you're exactly right, kind of see the translucency. So now if I go back up to my advanced configurations, you'll see there's a slight transparency back here, and you can actually see that's probably not the best image to put back there, but let me see if I can grab a different image, and you can actually see a little bit better.
The example that you showed, there actually was not an image in the tile itself. It just had the text of the name of the mission. I thought that was kind of neat. I don't know if you can re-show what you were showing.
Star Wars.
It was in the Star Wars example.
Sure. Let me just do this real quick. So let me save that. It's going to be our mission image, and now hopefully you'll be able to see this a little bit, and we'll get to here. So now you can kind of see that a little bit better. But you had a different area that you were focused on, is what you were saying?
No, I don't think this isn't what I was referring to. When you're showing the Star Wars set of missions, those tiles, if you'll just go back to that demo if it's not too hard, show the missions and look at each individual tile for each activity. And you could read the text, but you could see through to the background. That was a nice.
Yeah. That's actually, that's our next step, I think. I think you're getting ahead of us. I think we're actually.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll sit tight.
You're talking about these guys here, right? The activity cards.
No, it's the very first screen when you select your missions for Star Wars.
The mission this guy here, the mission overview, mission select.
No, it's the very first screen when you select a mission to play. You have to be in play mode, not in the designer.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So go back here. This guy here.
Yeah. Now, see, in the middle, there is no image inside the tile, right? It's just showing through to the background, correct?
I see what you're saying. Yes. So.
No, there's nothing there. It's just kind of foggy.
You are correct. So
I like that. How do you do that?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
You don't put a mission image in. That's how you do it.
Oh,
so
well, I can do that.
Yeah. This one has no mission image, and that's why it's sort of transparent and showing through. So if I went and...
Yeah, I really like that.
Let me select this tenant again, and I think it should update, because I think I added the mission image. There you go. So since I added the mission image, now you can kind of see that it has an image. So this other guy here, this super genius, he doesn't have an image. That's how.
Okay. Thank you.
Should we move to our next poll?
Yep. So let's go ahead and move into our next poll. Thanks, Bob.
So how do you obtain your imagery is our next question.
Great. So yeah, one of the things that we're trying to get out of this is, do you have on staff designers that you go to, can they create custom sizes for you for imagery? Do you have more of a corporate intranet that has like brand standards where you're going and downloading pre-sized images and logos? Do you have, can you go and request things, or what other ways do you kind of get your imagery? We'll wait for some results on that. And then we'll get into the activity portion of this.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and close that.
All right, so let's go ahead and see the results. So it looks like most people have other. So I'm curious if you have other, if you would raise your hand, or maybe if you want to type what other is in the little chat box, we can discuss some of that stuff. Sounds like a good deal of people have graphics on staff, a graphic designer on staff, which is nice. Let's see, do we have anybody volunteering their other?
Robert Butler's Internet, Shutterstock, create their own images.
Got it. So basically getting imagery from the web type of stuff, I'm guessing. So, all right, cool. All right, well, let's go ahead and we'll move into the activities portion of branding then. So the third and last level that you can brand at is at the activity level. So per activity, we have 3 different colors that you can use, and we also have an image. So the first activity color, as you can see, is this purple color, and it will populate anywhere there's an activity image. So this becomes sort of your overlay image, and it allows you to have the image see through. So this image that you choose for activity image will actually appear underneath this overlay image. So this purple image is actually about a 90% opacity, so you can kind of see through. This will kind of give you the idea here. The places where your activity image will populate will be in the activity card. So each activity, an activity card, each instance of that activity will populate with whatever image you choose for that activity, as well as the background in the activity navigation and selection area. So this purple area here will show a piece of that image behind it. We'll show you examples of that. And then if we move on to some of the other screens, like the pause screen and the end of game screen, pick up the activity 2 and activity 3 colors, as well as activity 1. So again, you'll see your activity image in the background on these. So after I play a game, I'll see that activity image. I'll see whatever color I choose. Right now I've got it as purple. And then I'll see this sort of accent color here as the light blue, so that's activity 2. And then in certain cases, we'll have an activity color 3 as another accent color, which is a little bit darker. Those are used in areas like these secondary buttons. All of the primary buttons will retain from what we did at I believe at the mission level. So if we go back up to the mission level, we have this M4 color as our primary button color. You can kind of see those sort of carry through all the way down. And then lastly, we have our leaderboard. So at the leaderboard level, for each activity, you'll have a different image in the background, and whatever color you choose for that activity will auto-populate in here with some of our pre-designed stuff. So we've got a little bit of an overlay here with this purple color, so it sort of creates this column. And then we also have our activity color as the activity title selection highlight, if that makes sense. So those are some of the areas that get affected by the activity branding. So if we go ahead and we go to the app, I'll demo some of that now. So let's go ahead and get into the Star Wars. And then per activity, we'll actually go to the Activities tab. I'm going to, doesn't really matter which one we select here. So if I select Knowledge Navigator, click into that guy, and then we can actually adjust some of the imagery here. So out of box, you see we had that sort of compass type thing. Let me see. If I go to this Activity Branding tab over here, so we've got our 3 thumbnails. This is where I can change all this stuff. Right now, I can change this. I don't know, there's a little bit of a glitch in the system here. I think it's because of the environment I'm running, but this should actually be this guy by default. So that's your default image for your activity, and then if I go ahead and I add whatever background image I want, in this case I'm going to choose C-3PO, you can see it actually updates in here, as well as the color has been pre-populated as well, so it would actually be a blue color by default, and I believe, so I'm going to go ahead and copy this. I believe the default color is actually this guy, so that's how it would look by default. Actually, the default color is a little bit lighter. You can see in the thumbnail up here, that's what it looks like. But if I go ahead and I type in the hex color that I want to use, you can see it updates that activity. So some activities have one color, some of them have two. This one actually has only one since it's not a game. I believe the game colors require two, or the game activities require two colors, one for the general overlay color, and then the other one gets used, I believe, in the leaderboard. Let me go and try to find one of the activities that uses two. So if we go here, again, we'll go scroll to the last tab on all of these activities, is your activity branding. In this case, you can see it's already been populated, so by default, this guy would actually be our checkpoint image, since that's the activity, so I go ahead and I would change that by selecting a different image. That one happened to be Obi-Wan Kenobi, so we'll choose him again. And again, you can see all the different areas that it gets updated in. So that would be the end of game screen here, would be your leaderboards. I can go ahead and I can change these colors if I wanted, so you can kind of see how that would affect it. So if I wanted to make it blue, you can see all these things sort of update on the fly, which is real nice if you want to adjust your colors. You don't like the way they look. So we've got leaderboard. We've got, as I mentioned, the area here for your activity selection. So this activity card will populate with whatever color you choose and the image that you choose for your activity, as well as this little area down here will give you a preview, a larger preview of that image. And then lastly, we have our game start screens. So that's pretty much what we have for activity branding. So open it up for questions at any point around activity branding or branding in general before I get into the game configurations. If you have a question, raise your hand, or you can go through and use the little chat to type your question in.
No questions so far.
No questions so far. Seems like everybody's following along and understanding them. All right, so before I go ahead and go into the other items in terms of game configuration, I'll just walk through a couple of image tips that I have, and we can send these out on the support site as well. I'll have Jake post some of these things on our support site. We can see with the new redesign in the latest release, we actually have a larger logo area now. So previously we had the mission count up at the top here, I believe, or actually I think what we had was a little message that said click to start or something like that. So we've removed that to allow you to actually have a larger logo area. So if you happen to have a very long logo, say if you're a lawyer and you have 5 names in your logo, it's pretty hard to fit that into a little square area. So what we've done is we'll let you use this whole area, and it will preview live, and you'll sort of get to see how it looks in that branding configuration page. What we recommend is the minimum size would be about 75 by 75, and I believe that's what the previous size was. But that's probably the smallest you want to get, say if you have a very square logo. What we recommend is about 300 width by 100 height around that area. And then our max area is in iPad mode, so we have a 3:2 ratio, which sort of shrinks our screen size down a little bit. So we have, that's the minimum size that you'll ever have in that area. So the minimum or the maximum size that you'll have would be 900 width by 150 height. So that's what we recommend for that. We've also increased the size of our mission cards and our activity cards just a tad. So here's the sizing on those. So they are actually 560 width by 365 height. Again, I'll post some of this stuff. I'll have Jake post some of this stuff in the support area, so you can easily reference this later. And then just some general tips. These were some of the things that we went through. But one thing that I noticed is when you actually have a logo that has transparency, say if we use that Star Wars logo, in some cases we might see some pixelation around the edge just because of the way the system converts some of the imagery. So what I would suggest is if you have transparent logos or images, I would put a little bit of shadow, like a drop shadow behind it, even if it's very subtle. That seems to help some of that pixelation. And again, if you run into issues with your logo, feel free to reach out to support, and one of our designers can actually help you make it look as good as it can. We're happy to do that for you at this point. And again, so the activity selection screen, we have new card sizes for those. Those are now slightly larger at 375 by 250. All of the background images will scale automatically. So as you noticed when we upload images into the system, so if I go back here and I upload an image, you can see any of these images that I have. Let me just try and find one that's a little bit off. These will actually auto crop and size to whatever's needed, so the system kind of knows what it needs in each case, and it'll automatically crop, as you can see here, automatically putting everything in, so you don't really need to know too much about the image size. As long as it's large enough so that it doesn't look pixelated, you should be pretty good. All right, so I'm assuming we don't have any more questions?
No.
All right,
No,
so
that's good.
let's go ahead and we'll, the last thing I want to talk about is actually game configuration, if I could spell that right. There we go. Game configuration. So let's walk through some of the games that you can actually configure. And this is less to do with the app branding, but it does tie into the branding if you have a theme that you want to carry over. In this case, we have checkpoint. So again, we can go, let me go here. Let me scroll over to our first activity over here. So basically, configuration allows us to change some of the things like the app default. So right now in Checkpoint, the whole theme is a travel theme, and you're traveling throughout different areas. So this happens to be San Francisco. What we can do is we can actually change any of the items in here. So if I wanted to say, if I'm still in the Star Wars theme, I could choose a background image. And I want them to be going to Cloud City, we'll say. So we're going to upload a background image. We're going to say that location is Bespin. I believe that's the area where it's at, and this is Cloud City. If I go ahead and save that, it'll show me a preview of that image. One thing we're working towards is having some live preview here. We don't have that currently, but what you can do is you can actually go in the app. So let me jump over to, I can find my other app here. I apologize, I lost my web player. There it is. So if I go in the app itself and I go into Checkpoint, let's go ahead and find Checkpoint, although this is probably not going to work unless I publish it, right? So let's go back here. And I'm going to save that. Now I'm going to publish Checkpoint. Let's go ahead and publish that, and then we can see our live changes. Hopefully it won't take too long. Usually these publishes are pretty quick.
Do you want to pull up our next poll while we're waiting?
Sure, let's go ahead and pull up our next poll while we're waiting on that.
So this one is, how would you accomplish branding in mLevel? How would you accomplish branding and customization within mLevel?
Right.
And that's now live.
Okay, we'll go ahead and give you a couple seconds to respond. Sounds like a lot of you handle the tasks on your own. Is that correct? Yep. All right, so we're going ahead and close the poll. Sounds like a lot of you do this all on your own, which is great. That means that we're making it easy enough for you to actually handle this stuff. One thing that we've talked about is having different access roles for admins. So one access role that we've discussed would be sort of around a graphic design or a basic designer role where you would just only have access to the branding items. That's something that you guys are interested in. Please reach out to us, let us know, or comment in the chat box that yes, that's what I want. It's just one area that we've also discussed using. So it looks like our checkpoint has been published. Let's go ahead and go back out here. We'll go to checkpoint. Let's go ahead and play that. And it should populate in the first area. the first level anyway, with our new stuff. So let's go ahead and check it, and there it is. So we've got Bespin City, Cloud, or Bespin and Cloud City. We've got our image. And as you go through, you can configure each of these levels to whatever you want. I'm not going to go ahead and play this game, but you kind of get the idea that you can really customize Checkpoint in terms of the background imagery and some of the introduction text, things like that. Actually, if we go ahead and play this, so I'm just going to start guessing really quickly, just so we can walk through it and I can show you how the end of game screen looks. My time's up. I was very close. I didn't make it. So you can kind of see here we selected that green color. We have our blue color underneath, our accent color. We've got the orange for our primary button. You can see it populates around all of the end of game screens. You can see our Obi-Wan Kenobi is now our mentor in here instead of the owl. If I go to the leaderboard, you'll actually see the imagery behind here that we chose for the activity, along with our colors and our accents. So everything seems to be working as expected. So let's go ahead and go to our next game. So let's close this guy out. If you have any questions, again, feel free to raise your hand or use the chat, and we'll answer those as we go along. So that was Checkpoint. Essentially, there's 3 levels in Checkpoint that you can configure, just like the 1 level that we actually configured. Let me go ahead and add. Don't know if we have. Sorry. Let's go ahead and add a couple more games. So let's add Fastlane. So I've added a Fastlane game in here. If I go ahead and I go to the first destination, now you can see out of box my first destination is Seattle. I have no location subtitle, and the image that it is using is the default image. Now we have a few configurations that you can approach with in Fastlane. Sorry, we have some default items that you can choose from. So one of the reasons we didn't allow custom imagery right here is just because we have animations with the background actually moving, things like that. So these pieces are sort of pieced out into different pieces that expand and move. In the future, if we hear that people want to put custom images in there, we may be able to find a solution for that. But you can see you actually get a preview of the image here. So if I click on the image, it'll give me a preview of what that is. So that happens to be mountains. We have desert. You can see the preview of the desert. We've got hills. We actually have some generic cityscapes. So these are not really any city skylines at all. They're just very generic buildings in case you wanted to have generic cities, or the city that you want to travel to is not included in here. We also have Chicago, Seattle, San Francisco, New York. We've been working towards getting some international cities in there as well. So if you have suggestions for cities, reach out to us. We're happy to take those suggestions. You can also put them in the chat box if you want to ask for suggestions right now. We're always happy to take those. So the cool thing is, if I wanted to have, say I want to have my Star Wars destination here, I can actually, if I want the location to be the Cantina on Tatooine, I'm not sure if I'm spelling all this right. And I know that Tatooine is in the desert, so I'll go ahead and choose the desert image, save that. Then if I go to my first motivator, you'll see we have a background image that you can customize. So by default, it chooses the city that we've chosen in the previous first destination here. So it shows Seattle. Now what I'm going to go ahead and I'll upload a picture of Tatooine if I've got it. So I think I've got one here. Let's go ahead and update that. I'm going to go ahead and save. If I wanted to really carry the theme across, I could say, use the force. Don't let the hazard stop you. I'll go ahead and save that, and then we'll go ahead and publish this. You can see, again, Fastlane has 3 different levels, so you can do each of those customizations at each of those levels. So I'm going to go ahead and publish Fastlane. Hopefully that won't take too long. Oh, I guess I need some questions. So if I have some questions, I'll go ahead and add those. If I don't, then we'll just sort of skip over that. So I'm going to add some questions if we have them. Let's try this guy. All right, great. So got some existing questions. Now I can go ahead and publish those. Again, we hope it doesn't take too long. Usually these are pretty quick. But before we do that, so I'll go ahead and let that publish, and we'll just talk about the other game that I'll show you in terms of being able to customize would be coordinates. So that's the one that we'll talk about next. And then once this is published, we'll go ahead and preview this. Still got about 15, 17 minutes left in this webinar, so I'd like to leave some time to open it up for questions. So if you do have questions, go ahead and queue those up for the end. Or if you want to chat, you can raise your hand. We'll unmute you, and we can actually talk on the phone. All right, so it looks like we're published, so let's go ahead and we'll go out to our web player. I'm going to go ahead and close this out, and then we're going to go to Fastlane should be in here. Let's see, I think I need to refresh my tenant. All right. Let's go ahead and see if it's in there now. There it is. Great. So Fastlane, I'm going to go ahead and play that. We'll start that game up, and now you can see I've got my desert. And we'll just answer some of these so we can get through the level. You can see I'm very good at Star Wars. Let's see. I'll get one wrong just so you have a little bit of fun. All right, now we should get, here we go, Cantina Tatooine, and now we're going to see our image of Tatooine. And we also see our Star Wars mentor. So you can see you can actually can put a lot of theming in this if you want to tie your branding to it. If you're a large corporation and you have a mascot or something that you use, there's fun ways to kind of add that in. So that's Fastlane. I'll go ahead and pause this. Got any questions?
No, someone's booing Jar Jar, though.
Yeah, I would boo Jar Jar, too. I don't really care for Jar Jar. All right. So the last configuration that I'll show you is coordinates. Go ahead, and I don't believe I have a coordinates in here, so let's go ahead and add one. So we're going to add the coordinates activity. Once that's added, we can click in, and we can change our destination. So again, I can have a any one of these here. We've got previews to show you what we've got. So New York, we can do Statue of Liberty, we can do Brooklyn Bridge. I'm actually partial to Chicago. Since we're based out of Chicago, you can use the Willis Tower, Millennium Park. Navy Pier happens to be my favorite. But you can do a custom one as well. So we'll go ahead and show a custom one. And what custom does is basically it wipes out all the images that we have here. And what it'll allow you to do is upload a custom image. So I believe I used to have one here. I'm not sure if I have it. But what you can do is you can actually have one of your graphic designers take an image like this. What they could do is that they can zoom in. Sorry. What they could do is they can take an image and they can actually zoom in for each round, so until you, or zoom out, I should say. So basically, the round one could be this image, like just a partial piece of it, and as you kind of continue, it would zoom out to the full image. Sort of giving you the overview at the end when you basically get to your destination. It'll show you the complete image. That's one way you can do it. Or if you have a certain location, such as a city, you can go ahead and fire up Google Maps, and you can take some screenshots and zoom it in yourself, going all the way from the world, all the way to wherever the destination is. So it's fairly easy to do. I don't think I'll go ahead and do that now since we only have a few minutes left. But the other thing you can customize is all of your coordinates. So if you actually have real coordinates that you wanted to plug in, you can actually do that. We tend to use some fake ones a lot of times if we're just making up a fake city like in Star Wars world. We can have our landmark title, so if we wanted to say we're going to go to the city of Seed, and that's on Naboo, all that stuff will populate in there. And if I go ahead and save this, I might get some configuration errors here, so we'll just go ahead and we'll fill those in. But you can see, try and go ahead and save that. We've saved it, and now it should give you the preview image. So as you upload these images, you can actually get a little preview of it. Another thing that we're working towards improving is our image upload controls, so that they all work the same and sort of gives you that live preview as you upload. So we have a new control for that. We just have not implemented it across the studio at this point, so that's one of our to-do tasks. And then you can also revert very easily. So if I didn't want this and I wanted to revert back to whatever the defaults were, we can do that. So that's essentially coordinates in a nutshell. If you have any questions around that, feel free to raise your hand or, again, use the question chat. Otherwise, that pretty much wraps it up for the things that I was going to talk about today. If you have questions or you have other items that you would like to see covered, we can certainly have a one-on-one session with you. We'd love to get your feedback on some of this stuff. I don't know, I think we did all of our polls, right? So we've got all of our polls done. That's really it. So the next webinar will be in January. So I don't know if we have a date set for that one yet. Great. So we'll get that date to you, and I believe that one is that one around Pathfinder?
Pathfinder, yep.
Yes. So Pathfinder. What is the date on that? Do you know? Oh, we don't know. Okay. So we'll get that date out to you. We'll send a save the date email. If these are helpful, that's great. We'd like your feedback on what can make these more helpful or a little bit more interactive. We're trying some of the polls. I believe I can actually probably use my webcam. I didn't do that this time. So if that's something that you guys are interested in, let us know. We'll be reaching out to some of our CAB members just to kind of see how it went and how you feel about it, what we need to do for future versions. We're going to post these. These have been recorded, so we'll post them up to the support site most likely, or at least post a link to it there so you can easily access it. Any other questions? We good?
Questions here.
All right, great. So thanks for attending, and again, we'll send that date out to you for the January webinar, and looking forward to seeing you guys there.
I'll make an announcement on the
Sure.
support site quick. Someone's asking about the support site.
Yeah, no doubt.
Hey, I'm Jake Bartlett here with the mLevel support team. Nice to meet all of you who I haven't met so far. We have a question about the support site, and that can be accessed at support.mlevel.com. And you can actually see a couple help videos out there, and we'll get the webinars out there as well. Lots of help content out there, and it's constantly growing. So definitely bookmark that and reach out to support@mlevel.com with any questions.
Great. All right. So here's the picture of the support site in case you want to see what it looks like. Again, we appreciate all of your feedback. So if you have feedback, let us know. And if we don't talk to you, have a great holiday. Thank you.
Thank you.